Okay, so just continuing on with our AutoCAD file that now has the satellite images with any correctly scaled. Got two different satellite images there, and so I might just start by putting them together. This being the 6 maps one at the top, which has some more detail. So I'm just going to select that, and then go back to the Home tab so I can click on the Move button. And I'll just pick it up somewhere that has a common reference, so maybe the corner of the tower there. And then go down to click on the same point on our original satellite image. That's a bit clearer. So it's fine to overlay them, and if you've scaled them correctly, then that's a good way of checking, because they should line up. So you can see there, well, it's the same size, maybe it's slightly off though, because these houses are exactly in line, so I'll just again move that across slightly, just to line it up as best I can. Now, it will never, well, it's very difficult to make it perfect, so you can see over here, it is lining up a bit better. And down here, don't get too fussy, as long as you've got it close, because they're perspectives. So even though it looks like a flat map, of course taken from a satellite, it is still a perspective, and they will have slightly different perspective angles. So this one has the more detail, that's the 6 map one, whereas the Google one, often you can have features turned on, like shopping and transport and things like that. That's all. So you don't have to have the Google one really, but I just thought it's nice to know how to use it if you need to. And again, it's just good practice scaling different sorts of images as well. So I've got those things where I want them, and then I can always lock those layers as well, so that I don't end up moving them accidentally. Just make sure they're both on that layer. So I'm doing this quickly, but essentially, if you're wondering, I'm selecting the image first, then going back to the Home tab just so I can choose the layer I want it to be on. And so now there's two things, because they're on the lock layer, can't be moved. So now I'm going to insert our subpath. So just going to the... Oh, now sorry, I'm not thinking. Okay, no, I will show you one other thing before I do that. So I'm going to unlock that layer now actually, because this drawing is oriented to north, which is fine in most cases, but because you're working on a building, sorry, on the space that's in here, that's at a different angle, it's actually going to work better if we rotate it to work with that space. So which is, yeah, it's here. So that's the edge of our room. So we want that to be basically our project north. And to help with that, I'm going to make just another layer, and I'll call it building footprint. And we will eventually trace the whole building footprint, but for now I'm just going to draw a couple of lines, make it a different colour so that it stands out. Maybe, yep, that'll do. And I'm also going to give it a nice heavy line weight, so again it stands out and I can see it really easily. Yeah, I'll just make it 0.5, even though we'll take it back and make it lighter afterwards. So I'm also then just going to make sure line weights are turned on, so if you don't see the line weight option, and I don't, you need to click on the 3 line button down the bottom right corner, that's your customise button, and then just tick line weight, which is there, that's it. And now you can see this extra button that's come up, which is line weight. I'll leave it turned off for now, and I'll turn it on. What? It's been there for 20 years. Yeah, I know a lot of people don't use it. I know that in some of the other classes they teach you to use. Yeah, now it's a great thing, because if you're using that and you're using your line weights and your layers, you don't have to worry about those annoying standard colours. You know how people have these fixed colours for layers? That's a really old thing, and you haven't had to do that for 20 years. But I know a lot of people still are in the habit of doing it because, yeah, they don't use this one enough. So, yeah, it's good that you notice that. So Yeah, so here I'm going to draw a line along the edge of our building. Just tracing it by eye as best I can. So that's our reference line. That sets the angle of the building. Right, but now this is where the magic happens. If I turn the line weights on, how much easier is that to work with and see? And that's how it would print too, so that's a great thing. So later we'll do the rest of the building, but for now that's enough to get my angle. So zooming right out, I'm going to select all of that with a window, click on rotate, and then zoom in and find the, I'll just use the bottom end of that line as my base point. Click. Then I'm going to use the reference option. So you can either just choose reference on the command line or type R, enter to choose the reference option. And then I'm going to click on the end of that line again, the same point, and then give the second point as the other end of that line. So that's my reference angle. Now I'm going to come around and make sure either ortho or polar are turned on. I'm going to probably just use ortho because it's easier. And make that snap to 90 degrees. Right, so that's our project north. So when we draw our room, everything's at a nice right angle and it's horizontal or vertical, which is much better for our drawing. And we can always rotate the whole thing 90 degrees left or right if we need to as well, but we can do that later. So that means that we're no longer oriented to true north, but we can always see that easily because true north is going to just be the angle of the side of any of these images. And we'll need to know that in a moment when we use the sum path diagram. So I'll just do that and I'll give you some time to try it. So again, insert tab, and I'll click insert, or on the home tab, the insert button there does exactly the same thing. Click insert, browse, and then go to find that block I've just made. So on the P drive, interior design, AutoCAD library, and scroll down, you'll see it, sun path, double click. And I'm not going to try to rotate it as I'm placing it, so I'm just going to bring it in first with the insertion point option ticked and nothing else ticked. Click OK, and then I actually might place it off to the side to start with. So it's set up for the north that I had for the project where I created it. But we of course need to rotate it to use our north. So to help with that, I'll just draw, like a lot of times you do in AutoCAD, an extra construction line and trace the side of the image, just by eye. Really handy option when you're doing things like this is to use the nearest object snap. This one here. And so then you can just choose any point along that edge and it will snap to it. But a really good tip I'll give you there, after you've done that, turn nearest back off again. It's not a good idea to leave nearest turned on all the time. So now I can move that line, and I've got it as a reference to tell me which way north is. We're going to move it up to our sum path. I'm going to click on the end of the arrow there. So now I can select my sum path block, click rotate, and then again I'll use the bottom end of that line of my reference angle, also my base point, and then again choose the reference option, and then again click on the same point as my base point for the reference angle. That's the part you've got to get used to with this reference option. Basically, often you'll choose that point twice. And then choose the other end of my line as the second point on my reference angle. And I'm being stupid, did it the wrong way, so I'll start that again. Okay, so again I'll select my sum path, click rotate, so you can all see what I did wrong. Again, choose the end of my arrow as my base point. Again, choose the reference option. Choose that same point again, but then the second point is the end of our arrow line. Now, it may not snap to it, but just do it by eye, it's fine. So the middle of that filled in blue line there connecting from the arrow, that's our base angle. Well, so can you see there, that's where it's rotating from. And now we can bring it around and snap to the end of our line. So our sun path now matches our north direction. That can now be moved over to the area where the building is. And it is over the building, so it's going to be hard to read at that size, so I'm going to then just select it. And you could use the scale command to make it bigger, but I was going to show you with blocks, you can go to properties, and there is a scale property already there. So don't worry about scale Z for 2D drawings, just scale in X and Y. So I'll just make it 2 for both. So that might be big enough. Maybe if we're going to show the whole building, maybe I'll try 3. Yeah, that's probably a good size. We'll need to just use a bit of judgment there and think about how it looks graphically, but I think that's probably a decent size. So have a go at that, and then if you get that done before you start sorting out your groups, you can start drawing in the outline of the buildings. Don't try and be too precise or draw in too much detail, just a very rough outline. And then the next thing will be to draw a basic outline of the adjoining streets. Again, don't go too far and create work for yourselves, just the streets nearby the building, and very simple outlines. You're not building them again, so you don't need to have perfect measurements. As long as it gives people an indication, like a map would, that's usually enough. Yes, sure. Not really, no, because it's not really a position, it's the angle. Right, so the sun, the rays of the sun, they're parallel. So here, to see, so if we think about the sun coming from there, it's a good point. I mean, you might be thinking about the size, but really it's not relevant. So that's the angle of the sun's rays at that time. So if I then use offset's a great command here, right, so all of the sun's rays would be at the same angle, right, going either side of that, infinitely, from our point of view. I mean, of course, in reality it's not infinite, but from our little, us being tiny compared to the sun, the rays are parallel, no matter how far you go, relative to us. So, yeah, so you'd think the size makes a difference, but actually it's only the angle. Well, no, but you're only thinking about the arrow there. So then, as it goes around, that arrow would change angle. So if you imagine, yes, it's all to do with the angles again. So probably not explaining it all that well, but again, the size, you'd think it would matter, but actually it doesn't make a difference. It's just the scale, just the angle. Yeah. It says an old trick with lights in general, to make them work like the sun does, you make the rays parallel, unlike a spotlight or something. So anyhow, if you could start to work on that, that'd be great. And if you get that sun path diagram working, that would be really good.